Well. What do we have here? Let me take these off quick. Yes, sir. Is everybody seeing me? Is everybody seeing me well? Is everybody seeing me? Make sure everybody is seeing me well. We are at the, let me make sure she knows this. Wawa House. Good to flow with office. I got my team. We're in a place to be. And happy to see you. Everyone here is tapped in what we got going on here in Ohio. Speak from my heart. Those shows. And, it's Sunday. So that is Sunday fun day. Right here, we to innovate rating. T is 5 more time. Not really, this is insane. Oh, this is called the meditative night. I don't know. I had to let it cool down. It's one thing about this Turkish coffee, or Yemen coffee, excuse me. It's Yemen coffee. Yemen coffee, right? What's historic about Wow Rapids? Wait, what else? If I'm pronouncing it, yeah, too sad. It's icy. It's south. And actually, I think it's this is the only one of its kind, maybe another one in the side of town in Norfolk. There's a historic distribution map behind them that details, it basically details the path of this Arabic coffee from Mocha, Yemen. That's right. So the term Mocha actually comes from Yemen. If you don't know, now you know. As you know, we are, like I said, we're switching things up, making events, we're getting more streamlined, getting more succinct with how we're doing things here. Still not going to rush through the boat. Now that we can report directly into subset. And sometimes you got to give yourself time to for the technology to catch up. And there's been a lot of discussion about AI and the use of AI in the media market. And, I had to be real by saying, some things I have to kind of slow down. And a lot of people to speak, right? Like the people decide whether or become themselves to my core. Being the poli-sci major base coming from a community-based mindset, even though I may rush so far ahead to do things, to help help engineer this life a nice way by showcasing the capabilities themselves that to other creatives that they I have thought about listening to certain topics. Every other day, I see some from my content specifically saying like, Substack. Um, and I was assuming, I guess that's why I told you, I was assuming that you get some kickbacks or kickback, shock, sharing, this type of stuff. And that tells you how much I'm really able to think of this weekend. People are I connecting to you in a certain way. Are you getting the same type of adjustment You just got to keep going, right? You just keep going. History's going to show itself, right? History's going to show itself. Speaking of history, speaking of previous things that I've faced, I've been going through this really tough mental space where I'm breaking my own like paradigms from what I thought it should look like to what it really actually is. And what it actually is sometimes feels a lot tougher than what I want it to be like, right? What I want it to be like is if it's when how fast you um, people that are like born into me, like born into me, son and family, all around sharing, let's get to me, like, this is our son, this is our brother, this is our cousin. But in reality, it's me. In reality, it's quiet. In reality, it's me waking up every day to decide what I want to do. It's me, my back's questioning my reality. It's me determining what matter and do I want to be. And that's what me serve. Die off. I don't know how it goes out here. Just plugging up right there. Other things on the English mixing that green light still going. Green light still good. Yep, still good. I just want to make sure you plug in so you don't die off because we got a lot to get into today. But yeah, I'm just telling my story, right? Moved to Ohio, really journeyed to Ohio. I didn't necessarily move. As I look back now, like it's been a few years, I've existed in multiple places at one time, right? Didn't think that was going to be possible. Didn't think that I was going to be actually even something that will even happen, right? But with the power of the internet, mm, great tea, cheers. With the power of the internet, it gives me the ability to exist in multiple places because a lot that I've done has been documented on the internet. I was documenting what we were doing because we did not have a major media market in the Carolina market, especially in Spartanburg, South Carolina. A lot of people travel to Charlotte to be heard. A lot of people travel to Atlanta to be heard, all along the I-85 corridor, all right? All along the 85 corridor, a stop that you always typically make is right there in Greenville or Spartanburg when you travel between the two cities, or even just through the Carolinas. You're looking for a major city to stop in when you're on 85. You're going to meet Spartanburg. You're going to meet Greenville. When I say major city, these are cities that are less than 300,000 people in population. But to us, it was very major. But to the major market medias, just a blip on the radar, right? Uh, but I wasn't going to be a guy, even at that age, this is me 10, 15 years ago. I was not going to allow the environment to dictate where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be. So at a young age, I really started visualizing myself, you know, forward. You know what I mean? Like forward. It caused me to get out of relationships that I thought I was going to build a family around. When I looked at the family that I was building, I recognized it was not a family at all. It was people who were just tolerating each other for the sake of relationship. And I was part of that culprit. I looked at the relationships I have with my internal family, my immediate families, and I saw no real connections. I saw people who, due to the issues of life, due to the actual conditions that we were all in, we were forced to come together. Out of that, of course, I connected with my younger siblings a lot deeper because I saw the level of responsibility that was being placed on my life at an early age to maintain certain structure that really wasn't there. All of these things were quite tough for me in my late 20s, early 30s, and to mid 30s to a point where I eventually went through a divorce, eventually, became homeless, eventually uh, had to come out of a particular market that people wanted me to dominate in, like fully dominate. And, I had people back at home that assumed that I was going to be like the mayor of the city. But I knew I didn't visualize myself in that way. I didn't visualize myself in a front office, in an office, you know, reading over whatever the case may be to I don't know. I didn't visualize myself in that way. And I didn't really care to. I didn't care to. It's like it didn't mean that much to me to consider myself a mayor, especially when I looked at the mayor that was presiding and I saw the real powers that he had. But what I did want to be at that stage was a stakeholder in a way where I could be part of a growing underground machine that was going to usher the mainstream into the other way. Because let's be real, mainstreaming is only it's first of all it's a fake world, right? The mainstream world is a fake world. It is a place where uh, the illusionary spaces are magnified and they just pick and choose out of the underground what's working to gain that consistent leverage of pop, right? And I personally, I was not an individual that cared too much about that. Pardon me, I get this tea. Um, so with that being said, I didn't really, I didn't want to go in a path that someone set before me when I did not see themselves successful in said path. You know, I came out of a household of illusions and I had to do over 20 years of breaking that mentality of illusionary of illusionary things being attractive. But I also knew if I did the work on the ground and I documented every step, no matter how weird it looked, years down the road, it's going to tell the test of time. Right. It was funny if I was working at the free shout out to the UFC. I was doing some brand ambassador work at the Sonic Temple Festival, which is one of the largest Midwest arts and music festivals. And we held it at the historic Crew Stadium here in Columbus, Ohio. And it was so cool. Like, you know, you're in a different group of people and they have their own vibes and everything. So you're getting to know them, they're getting to know you. And the lady that's working with me, the young lady that's working with me, shout out her, who I believe she was like an art director and multiple things. She was like, you know, you should do like a biographical like movie, a biopic about yourself. And I chuckled because I was like, that's a great idea. But what made it a great idea, what I did not tell her was it's kind of already happening. Like if you stitch all of the content I've put together over time, you'll see like exactly like who I am and the type of things that I have going on. And you know, you'll see exactly um, the trajectory of where I was headed and where I am today. And shout out to Substack, we're still documenting now on Meet the Innovators Radio, right? And what's funny was when I started this platform, Meet the Innovators, and Meet the Innovators show, it was on Periscope. You guys may not remember what Periscope was or is, but I started the platform streaming just like this on my iPhone 6 in my house. You know, I was interviewing artists. This is like 2014, over 10 years ago. I'm talking about Benjamin Starr, who's gone on to do great things. Bryant Kirkwhite of A Bevy Productions. Shout out to shout out to my whole squad over there. Black Socrates of Spoken Word Spartanburg at the time. And so many other people just came right there in my back office when I was staying on that little house on the hill. And we would just talk. We would just talk about the culture. And you just don't know where things are going to take. But again, I'm documenting every step because it's like, I know what people want me to do, but I want to show them I do this well, right? Because nobody knew I could do that. Like that wasn't that wasn't something in the household that I grew up saying that this is what we were going to do. Like that wasn't the case. Like I was doing some church work under my parents, doing production work for them. I was recording my father on, on his tapes, his sermons. I was recording those things. So I was recording people already on tapes and things like that. But I wasn't stepping into the music space. I had not really been, and even though internally I was very passionate about music, um, you know, my parents would discover all kind of like tapes that I bought secular music, and I would get in trouble with it consistently. It kind of influenced my brother to like write raps and things like that because he would see the raps that I would write. But uh, but I knew that I was passionate about music. I knew I was passionate about culture. Period. I understood the importance of culture, the importance of cults, and then the root word of cult in this hip hop shit, right? This black shit that we're talking about. And I wanted to be more, I guess the term is an anthropologist of sorts. My parents thought I was going to be an attorney. My grandma thought I was going to be an attorney. God bless her soul. But I knew that those things were not in my true trajectory once I actually went through the scholastic process. Because to remind you, 2008, when I enrolled at USC Upstate, shout out to the Spartans, shout out to my boy T Mays for low key influencing me to go to USC Upstate. At the time, like he went to USC Spartanburg. But I was like, man, if my boy T Mays is there and I know what type of guy he is, it must be a decent school. So I followed and, my siblings followed me up there. But, T Mays, he's one of those guys that's always been like a forward thinker himself. And shout out to my brother in that way. So, in a way where I was like, okay, I can make this move. Up to that particular point, 2008, I had already worked again, as we said previously on the previous episode, on the Obama campaign. So I already had some political work under my belt, but I also knew I didn't want to go all the way politically because I foresaw an ever changing environment and an environment that was not truly conducive to the ideas that I wanted to present. So what I would see, especially in the political arena, nobody was representing the hood. Like nobody was representing the downtrodden. Nobody was representing street people. As you guys, I'll be saying hood street niggas. Like nobody was representing these niggas. Nobody was stepping up from this perspective of I come from Howard Street, right? Like we smoke, we roll up, we don't bother with soul. We represent the north side. Like even though gentrification was starting to happen all around us, nobody was speaking truly up from that perspective. And so I put myself in a position to learn, right? To learn about where I was at, which was Spartanburg, South Carolina, and engulf myself and ingratiate myself in said cultures to provide a beginning infrastructure of things to come, right? So, I graduated from USC Upstate, and of course, I worked in some government entities, the housing authority, and I was a family self-sufficiency coordinator. So with that being said, I spent a lot of time dealing directly with the low-income disadvantaged individuals who were just wanting to get better in life. They weren't trying to be rich, but they were just going to buy a home or get a new car, finish school. And I was serving as a coordinator to coordinate resources for them and create a plan to get there. The whole time I'm looking at it personally, like, okay, if you're doing this 5-year plans for all these different individuals and you can help navigate them here, what's your 5-year plan? Right? Where are you going? Where do you see yourself 5, 10, 15 years? And so subtly based on the own structures and seeing the trajectory where I was headed and me not wanting to be like my parents in a certain way and the struggles that I saw growing up at home, I knew I had to mentally dig deep. I had to dig deep. I had to really find my voice. There was no other way around it. And that in itself is very tough. You know, again, it's just me. Now, again, I'm visioning, once I arrive to these places, I'm going to have family that's going to be all around me say, you did it, you did it. Hey, go you. But you don't understand. There is a certain death that exists where once you kind of go too far out there in the ocean and they can't see you, they can't feel you either. And you have to trust that you can either swim back or you just got to trust wherever the waves take you, it's going to be for your good. And I've had to trust wherever the waves have taken me is going to be for my good. But during the whole process, I'm charting and documenting where the wave is taking me. Okay. Stick right there. Where is the wave taking us now? Right? Where is the wave taking us? Right now, I'm at the Quawa house. The wave is taking me to some delicious aromatic tea. It's helping me like get that focus. It's helping me lock in. And the wave is right here in Ohio. The wave is in Carolina as well, still. And we're going to get to all of that. But before we get to those regional discussions, there was some very, just want to refresh what's been going on in the industry over the past few weeks, right? Obviously, let's get to Juneteenth, right? Juneteenth was just a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week. Let's look at it's the 28th today. Yeah, it was technically a week ago. And we saw different things that happened all over the nation and whatnot. And there was a lot of celebrations. But we want to focus on Spartanburg, South Carolina, right? That small place that I graduated from college from, started my professional career, started my professional underground media career, did some events there, had an amazing car show. Shout out to the SWA Weekend and the SWA Nation. You know, we would host all various different events, urging creatives to become self-sufficient, urging creatives to become involved in the political process, urging creatives to do everything they can to be heard, document, find your way, find your wave, right? I was able to be a part of, a crew that ushered in Juneteenth as a major, not just holiday, but a major event day for the city, right? One of the first cities to actually sanction a Juneteenth celebration. I think the only other city that was really doing it like that was Galveston, Texas, where the holiday originated. And shout out to Miss Oprah Lee. You can check that episode out. We'll talk about how Juneteenth originated as a whole with Miss Oprah Lee and the great work she did. But in Spartanburg, South Carolina, there was a small delegate of people that knew the importance of the holiday and wanted to see what the city would do and could do for its residents to uplift the pride and things like that, things of that nature. One of those guys at the time was Monier Abusaf, newcomer to the city as well, running for office, a Republican, and individual who, maybe I politically disagree with in some ways, but I definitely agreed with him in the aspect of we need to find new avenues and pathways to showcase our ingenuity and our freedoms. At that time, I was creating merch called Keep Black America Great, right? Because this is 2016. This is the original campaign that happened. Now, listen, Obama comes out of office and the next president that the country elects is Trump. There's MAGA shirts everywhere. I didn't want our population or our group of people to get distracted by the noise of what MAGA was creating, the backlash of the progress that they saw from the Obamas, the backlash of this new Black excellence, this new Black pride, Black people waving their flags, Black people beating their chests, Black women going into professional environments. And there has been a backlash since 2016 that we've experienced in these neighborhoods, all up to a point where we pushed as a nation against the progressive nature of having a woman president. The fact that we still say woman president tells us that we're not there yet.
just like a woman rapper. Just she should have been the president. Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris should have been president, not the first woman president. Because once we start doing these demographics and dynamics, that's when people start emotionally connecting to the ballot based on these social dynamics instead of the actual proof of what these people can do and what they had already been doing up to that particular point. That's something that we was able to attack with the Obama administration by showing that this guy's not going to be just the first Black president. This is the person that's the most qualified to do the job. Let me show you why he's qualified. And the rest was history, right? The backlash that we received was, well, let's throw out qualifications and let's just put white men back in office. Let's just put white men back where they're supposed to be, because that's who typically is running the nation. When you look at most Fortune 500 companies, there's a white man that's running. So let's just go ahead and make America back to that. That's the backlash that we felt. No distance to progressive white men and other white men that are serving as allies. We're talking about the people who are existing in office and where they fell in line and how the rest of the nation fell in line behind that messaging. I didn't want us to get trapped into that fight. I wanted us to culturally identify who we still are, push things forward, not become reactive, but keeping us great, right? That was the message of keep Black America great. And that rippled throughout Spartanburg. When we threw that Juneteenth festival, I had a small pop-up. Shout out to my boy Najee Joyner, Samson Gray. We had already put out a little project with him, an EP called Hey God, which was super dope. Shout out my boy Ladrice Cardell. Shout out my boy Travis and the Deck, who was DJing that day. And all the artists that came out. We were right there in Stewart Park, Highland communities. If you know anything about the Highland community in Spartanburg, South Carolina, there's one way in, there's one way out. It's famously known for being very self-policed, community police. And I'm, being a newcomer, popped up there, us and our team, with Monier and his team. And I urged at the table, because what they brought me on to do was to add the entertainment factor. They wanted entertainment. They didn't want it just to be a historical day. They wanted people to truly enjoy themselves. So we brought the entertainment piece. So all the artists that I was working with at the time, I was like, yo, this is the next big thing, right? And we'll find a way to put some money in your pocket if we can. If not, we'll get you a booth where you can set up. Idris had a famous setup where he was pushing his art and things. It was live painting out there. Super dope. It was very hot that day. Nobody got into a fight. Everybody was just on one accord. Those things showed me that, we as a people are a lot smarter and a lot more disciplined than what the news is reporting. Now, mind you, while these things are happening, the news isn't reporting all these good things that are happening in the community, right? It was almost as if the media wanted to ignore what our progress was. But that was part of the messaging that I was selling us. Like, the media is not going to be here for us. Historically, the media it only sells when we're doing something negative. It only pushes us towards more negativity because we feel like that's where we're going to be heard the most. And that's where we're going to do stupid things. And that's where we're going to be respected. Like, I didn't want to be part of it. Tapping in on the chat, guys. You know what I mean? Give me a second. Just telling you guys thank you. So, you know what I mean? We can get live in the chat, things like that. A lot of love over here. And please share. Please share. Please share. Send me some hearts. Let me know what's going on. Let me know that you're enjoying what you're hearing. We're going to get into the real topics, but I'm going to give you some background on how we get to this particular point. However, during this whole process, again, my internal life and my family life is unraveling. You know what I mean? I'm knowing that still where I'm going in my home life isn't aligning to where I'm going personally. And how I had to figure out the next step. Delicious coffee, guys. The next step. And yeah, Quawa House. I didn't want to I didn't want to fall in the line of repeating the things that I experienced. Uh, and I didn't want to fall in line of doing what mainstream media says is necessary to get heard and seen. Because if these things are counterproductive to build creating community, why am I doing it? Again, that was my purpose, to identify that market, to be part of that growing expansion and part of that voice being heard. And so much that, excuse me, in so much that I took a lot of stripes. I made a lot of mistakes. I put myself out there in a lot of places that, if I look back now, I'm like, I didn't have to do it like that. But I think deeply, like, no, I had to do it like that. Because if I did not break my own mental paradigm, I would have fell back into what was safe. And I've been doing that since. These things are aspects of us that we have to really dig deep in and break so we can see ourselves going forward. So, Juneteenth, seeing how Spartanburg has gone from that moment to, Life Jennings, Barnett Park, like from Stewart Park to Barnett Park, right? Huge things. The Bet Gala. Shout out to Victor Dura. Shout out to Smith and Lee. Shout out to all of the individuals who found ways to make Juneteenth a standout calendar, city sanctioned event. Now, mind you, at the time, I was pushing everybody to break free from the government, to not rely on the government, to do certain things for us, to find ways to do it ourselves, in so much that we created value within our community that the city had to say, no, we want to align with this. In so much that the first Black mayor, a longtime city councilman, is now mayor and reelected mayor, Mayor Rice. All these individuals made things happen. So Spartanburg, South Carolina, man, a city less than 60,000 people, not Charleston, not Columbia, Spartanburg, putting together a show that aligns with Black power, that aligns with community level engagement and the pride of who we really are. Can't yeah, can't really draw that up, man. Like it's really one of those things where again, you sing yourself where you want to go. And you say, okay, this is not what we want to do. So I want to give a salute to that. Now let's come out of that particular, because Juneteenth was amazing. Another super dope event is the verses, right? Shout out to verses, man. Verses is super dope. Shout out to Timberland, Swiss Beats. We've seen this particular program go from live on Instagram to Triller. I think now Apple Music is involved, and we know creating something new is very tough. Consistently leveraging your ideas and ensuring that you're heard on a certain level is very tough. Pushing yourself to the next level of thought and growth is very tough. And we did these things without remorse. You know what I mean? In so much that you can tell that Swiss and Timberland behind the scenes had to consistently put out the work and do the work of the marketing, of the branding, of protecting the brand. That's why you'll hear, shout out to Joe Budden. I'm a fan of the show. Joe Budden, obviously, is friends with Swiss Beats, is friends with Timberland and whatnot, or at least colleagues. And anytime there's something critical said about verses, he's gotten a call, or he's had to address the call, or he makes it famously known. Or you'll see Swiss Beats, you'll see Timberland come out of nowhere saying that protecting the brand. And most recently, right, T.I. has made some critical statements on the Joe Budden podcast that was really on just the Patreon, so it was only for a select group. But people ripped it, and put it out, and they're like, "Look what T.I. said." And he said, "That's Pope people activity." Pope people activity, right? And people assumed, based on the context of the discussion, that he was talking about verses. This tea is great. And you can tell that he got a call because he said that in his the viral reaction where he's, he had to, I guess, had to recant. And I won't say he probably recanted, because shout out to Tip, he's going to speak his mind. I don't think nobody can make him recant a speech or anything that he says. But he had to sort of like clear up, I think is the better term, what he meant by poor people activity. Now, T.I. is, I want to say, 4 years older than me, right? So I'm sure if you hear the story of how he's come to his prominence as being T.I., there's a legacy there. There's a story of an artist that was not fully like respected or heard in the beginning of his career. He busted his ass, put his team on, and start putting out cultural hits. T.I. went up north. This was when rappers, especially from the South, sometimes would lie about being like New York connected, or they'll try to rap like they're from New York, or they'll be, because I remember when they were calling T.I. the Jay-Z of the South. Some of y'all remember that. T.I. was considered the Jay-Z of the South because his rapping styles wasn't fully Southern. The way he would talk about drugs, trapping, and things like that gave a little bit to kind of old school Jay-Z, where he was kind of braggadocious. I think he was very braggadocious. He was very arrogant, carried himself in a way where it's like, listen, I know who I am before the numbers got me, right? There's a great interview that he's had with DJ Drama on the Gangsta Grizz podcast. You guys go check that out. It was super dope. I really listened. When I was listening to the episode, I remember as being a youth coming into manhood myself, being a T.I. fan. I remember I'm Serious with the Beanie Man joint, and people not really rocking with that, even though I like that. Dun, 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 dun. Y'all don't know, right? And then I remember people panning that and like, oh, what is this? No flow, no paint, no clothes. Like when he was rocking like that, which was some heat, but it was ahead of his time. He goes, okay, y'all don't really rock with that. I'm gonna go up north, right? Meth Bleak, right? Shout out to Meth Bleak. Meth Bleak goes down south when he's trying to establish his career for some hits, because I believe that was kind of Jay-Z coach, because Jay-Z famously would go down south. He pulled Juvenile on the Snoopy record. Like, Jigga had been known for hitting the Carolina market, hitting Maryland, D.C., Virginia, saying I'm going down south to find. He went to Philly. That's why he had to boost picnic there. He went to Philly. That's south for New York artists, like going down south to touch the artists that other people had not really quite welcomed yet in the industry. Myth Bleak follows the same, mindset where he's like, okay, who's the hottest people down there? He goes and finds Trick Daddy, who was at the time probably a bigger artist than T.I. Because Take It to the House, all those joints were up. If I'm not mistaken, if I got the whiskey. And if I don't, tell me in the comments. And he grabs young rapper Tip for the track Round Here. Now, y'all may not know about Round Here, but it was one of the hardest tracks that was out. And like T.I., you can tell he took it personally to showcase what Southern rappers could sound like with next to New York rappers. Someone that is really focused in putting Atlanta on the map. Because up to that point, it was Lil Jon, it was Ludacris, it was Outkast. Those were the three biggest artists that come out of Atlanta. Obviously, Jermaine Dupri being one of those producers, 1492, one of the biggest projects that come out during that time. But we're talking about pure rappers. It was Ludacris that was really dominating at the time. Ludacris didn't really do the trap shit. He did rap about smoking and stuff like that and women. He was more on the comedy rap end of things. You had Lil Jon, who was taking the elements of Buck in from Memphis and creating crunk in Atlanta, which birthed the Bone Crushers, which birthed the East Side Boys and Lil Scrappy, all of those individuals. So that's what the sound was in Atlanta. And then you got this guy T.I. who went up north, rapping and show what he did, come back down south, hop on outside of the club, think I'm a phone. I'm a bank king. I take your cookies, like, and then going to war with Lil Foot during that time to showcase. And no, I'm the king of the South, right? I'm gonna go check in with Scarface and make sure it's okay to say, but you can't tell me not to say that. It's putting Lil Foot back in his place and started Lil Foot because we love the Lucky Charm covers. You know what I'm saying? We love, you know what I'm saying? This is the way we fall. Like, we love that. But T.I. was relentless. His promo, relentless. The way he was promoting other artists in his camp. Young Dro pops up. Shoulder Lean, relentless. Fast forward, becomes a star on ATL at a role that he damn near didn't qualify for. But with guys like Will Smith stepping in saying, if you don't support this artist on this particular platform, my money is out. So a guy from Philly saw a guy in Atlanta and saw his trajectory where he was going. T.I. is now fast forwarding now in his mid 40s. And you see him promoting this particular project the same way he promoted Urban Legend, Trap Music, King, going into these interviews, being confident, stepping out into the light, challenging other rappers of like, y'all think y'all better than me? Hop on this record. Let me see what you got. Like, he has already been in the battle, right? We remember the battle he had with Ludacris. Say often, CRP of my dear. See, I survived that. Had some joints that went right back to a point where was grew up a screw up. Was that them two to back together? If I'm not mistaken, or maybe that was Jeezy. Jeezy comes out, right? And really starts doing the trap shit. T.I.'s now a star because of these particular battles. So let's fast forward to this verses, right? Last year, T.I. spent a lot of time calling out 50 Cent to the stage, right? And according to reports, sources like Vibe, Vice, and more, T.I. had already talked to 50 behind the scenes about doing this particular show. 50 had a show where he even booked T.I. to come out with the band and everything. And that's where T.I. calls him out, saying, we're going to do these verses or not. And they went through these series of back and forth to a point where 50 was like throwing shade at Tiny for no reason. And so much that the boys hopped out with their own projects and used it as promotion and whatnot. And I think T.I. sat back and said, so I got to do all of this to get y'all to watch our verses when I think that my catalog should be enough to promote. Like, I have to literally promote as a 45-year-old man to youngins to watch me. I'd rather do it the old school way. hard lyrics, hard music, great interviews, and being in your face every chance that I get. That's what I'm gonna do. So that's what he considered poor people activity was the internet antics. And I feel him on that. Because at this age, why are we doing internet antics? 50 Cent. And if that's your means to getting to the next level, but you have to tear down and break apart your own community, to what benefit do we have? Right? I mean, you guys let me know in the comments. Is this a viable way? Do you guys think? Because we're older now. Is this the viable way where artists get heard? Do I have to put you down? Do I have to call your mama out? Do I have to call your kids out? Do I have to say, we saw what Kanye was doing with Jay-Z and how that broke that relationship. We're never going to get a Watch the Throne 2 ever again, y'all. We may not ever see them in the same room again. Right? Because one thing you're not going to do is talk about a man's kid. That's just what it is. I don't care what you're going through mentally. You better figure it out before you start mentioning somebody's kid. Right? So we saw artists as big as Kanye West really diminish his own brand based on his way of promoting. Right? At what cost? At what cost? I believe that is what he meant by poor people activity. But he had to make sure, word to Timbo and Swiss, he had to make sure he went right there to the to the sources, to the online people, to the Breakfast Club people and whatever, and basically say, hey man, I didn't mean it that way. We know why he had to say that, because everybody's protecting their brand. Speaking of brand protection, right? And speaking about, the Breakfast Club and whatnot, Charlemagne the God, Charlemagne the God, Charlemagne the God, we're calling you to stand yet again. My critiques of Charlemagne is well known. Someone that comes from Moncks Corner, South Carolina. Um, we finally got one on the XXL. We've always been critical of Charlemagne and the Carolinas of how involved is he in Carolina business, in Carolina music and hip hop business. It's one time for that. At what level? At what levels have we truly used our power to? Pardon me while I get my tea ready. At what level? At what level have we really used our power to uplift, empower, connect, grow the culture that you came from? Right. And just working behind the scenes isn't good enough if you go on the scenes and you're bragging and you're double talking and you're saying this, that, and the third. You're at what cost? So he's having this back and forth with academics, and it's been a media war, it seems like it, right? Seems like there's a media war between the Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, Google platforms and independent infrastructures, where Charlemagne has gone on record saying that he's called academics to warn him of things that he knows, even though he could not fully articulate what he knew on his own platforms of really idiot. You can see where Andrew Schultz is trying to get it out of him, but he's doing a lot of double talking yet again. You also see academics doubling down and what he knows and how he feels that Charlemagne, the God, is a Rock Nation puppet or a Rock Nation shield. Now let's get into that. I feel that, first of all, that's not a hard take to say that Charlemagne could be a Rock Nation shill. Because we've known, if you watch The Breakfast Club over the years, Charlemagne has always said he's a Winfrey, let's say Winfrey Smith and Knowles Carter uh, supporter. He said that. So we know that he's not going to be highly critical of anything Knowles Carter or Carter, House of Carter. We're not going to make it strictly Robbie Nation. We're going to say, now he wears the flag hat all the time. Like he leans in and says, I'm doing this today, I'm waiting for my check. You can have as many jokes as you want to have about a Charlemagne, but the people are going to believe what they want to believe, right? People see you as the middleman between the powers that be and the people. And you can't all of a sudden take yourself out of it when you've been saying these things over time. We haven't heard you being critical of Meg Thee Stallion or any Rock Nation real artist. We've seen you just consistently lean to the positive end while being heavily critical of other artists, showing that there's no connection to where they want to go. We've seen you be consistently critical of Drake. Yeah, consistently critical of Drake. And in this most recent episode of Brilliant Idiots, he's using the same talking points that Jay-Z has about what Jay-Z have to do with what we have to do with Drake. And this is as a person of body language and hearing tone on how people speak, when you hear him address certain things, you can hear how his voice goes up and how he stutters really fast because it seems like it's hit an emotional nerve. Even though you might just be joking about it, but at the same time, are you joking? I don't think he's joking all the time, guys. Not at all. And it's getting harder to defend it when you got people. And then at the same time, at the same time, you got him saying in these same episodes, but Chris Morrow is like, I read the comments and he's saying, I don't read the comments. Charlamagne was saying, I don't read the comments. I don't read the comments. Bro, during the same episode, you said somebody said. Who is the somebody? The somebody that was in the comments that you quote that you don't want to highlight. He consistently uses the whole internet. The internet is saying this. No, it's people operating on the internet. The internet doesn't have its own personality. It doesn't operate without the work of humans. Now we'll get into the AI and the dead internet theory. Well, let's downgrade that back into just users online voicing their opinion based on what they see. And you can't gaslight people from what they see, Charlemagne. You can't gaslight. You got a person like academics who is younger, who has a stronger, wider base, who has a more active base, using his base to put out certain notions that he believes in. Whether he's being fed information by his power ups that be or not, his voice is what it is. And if his voice was not what it was, you would not be going on your platforms to clear things up consistently. You'll just ignore it, or you'll just say, the internet said, the internet said, I'm sure. But you have to actually deal with the academics of what he says because there's a growing base that actually believes that. Right. And I'm not going to get too deep into it. I'll just say that with the same energy, he could be pouring that into South Carolina and North Carolina artists. Ruben Vincent, the baby, uh, Benjamin Starr. Like Benjamin Starr is right there from Charleston, South Carolina. And I've yet to see or hear Charlemagne the God to acknowledge that type of artist. Like you literally had an artist that rapped better, in my opinion, than Kendrick Lamar, same similar subject matter, but from a Southern perspective. And it was widely ignored. But say something about Jay-Z. Even though Jay-Z's a grown man with children, he can defend himself. You'll find articles and you'll find him digging for articles uplifting Jay-Z's name, defending Jay-Z, saying, I don't understand why Jay-Z can defend himself, Charlemagne. So, and it's because of what it sounds like is you got powers that be that see that their power slipping because traditional terrestrial radio is phasing, because even old formats like it's phased. Like sitting down doing a podcast, it's like in a studio is cool, but that's only attractive to the 35 and up crowd, which is phasing. Like these people in said demographic are parents. They're busy doing everything else. They don't have time for deep dives. They only can listen for broad strokes. So whenever they're in conversations with younger people who are 10, 15 years younger than them, we sound out of touch because we don't know what's really going on. But you have to clean it up every time to make it sound like you know what's going on. Well, speaking of Jay-Z, reasonable doubt, excuse me, turned 30 years old, right? Reasonable doubt. Man, can I live? Friend of foe, say to biz, 22 tools. One of my favorite projects. And 30 years ago, I was 11 years old. So was I listening to Jay-Z at 11 years old? No, I was not. Who was I listening to at 11 years old? Fred Hammond. Shout out to Fred Hammond. That Tiny Desk was beautiful. Bread of heaven, stand down from the Lord. Did that cleanse your timeline like it did for me? It definitely did. But Outkast, John P. Key, these are the people that I was listening to at 11 years old. It was definitely not Jay-Z. I definitely heard Nas before I heard Jay-Z. It seemed like Nas at the time spoke to the power of the individuals that were on the ground. So I cleaved more to that than I did with Jay-Z. And, you know, with that being said, pardon me, I'm checking some stats over here. Okay. With that being said, I came to the understanding of Jay-Z Volume 2. And Volume 2 really put me in a space where I was like, okay, I need to hear more from this artist. Like this is cooking something different right now. Like I want to be down with this. It's mature rap, it's art in the raps, and it sounds way different than anything else I had heard at that particular point. Um, it's Jay-Z, man. Like literally the greatest marketer of rap, literally one of the greatest businessmen in rap. And this particular point in time is an historic moment. You know what I'm saying? And with this historic moment, it's going to come out all the other stories that we have not heard, all of the other uh, viewpoints that we have not heard. And pardon me, guys, I'm still typing. We live streaming right here from the Quiet House. We'll do it live. Do it live. But you guys are seeing a master class of marketing and media efforts from a rapper that is almost 60 years old, maybe 60 years old already. A master class of someone saying, okay, the music is already there. There's nothing I can redo about the music. Maybe I can remaster projects or remaster. Before we go further, rest in peace, DJ Clark Kent. Rest in peace, God. Rest in peace, OG. I hope you're looking down with a smile, seeing what's happening, because without this reasonable doubt doesn't happen. Rest in peace, Irv God. Okay, because without this album does not exist. Dame Dash, shout out to Dame Dash. We're sorry that it has not panned out for you on a more mainstream level, but you, Dame Dash, powerful mind when it comes down to the marketing, the media, it's still marketing himself, even using humor to make yourself look crazy, but you're still a topic of conversation. A master class. Dane knew the 30th anniversary was happening this year. So he also knew I had to find ways to create press for myself because I am part of this particular thing. So shout out to all of these particular individuals that made this particular thing happen. And it all comes to a head right here, 30 years in NYC, the Knicks win a championship. Um, and with the Knicks winning the championship a couple weeks later, you got Jay-Z celebrating 30 years of his debut project. And to add that, I want to say next week, maybe or the week after, he's performing at Yankee Stadium, 2 shows, well, maybe 3 shows, I believe, celebrating 25 years of the Blueprint, 30 years of Reasonable Doubt. Now, this comes from the heels of just again, we're focusing on the master class level of marketing. Jay-Z was in the media about a month back or couple months back, low key kind of chastising artists for their position on beef and the battle. And maybe we need to move further, only for him to hear or revisit, I would say, because according to Charlemagne and God, he didn't really address Drake. It was just one line because Drake has been rapping about him the whole time. Because Drake been saying about him the whole time. What you mean? Even though he's not talking, even though he doesn't talk for Jay-Z, he definitely was explaining why Jay-Z had to go on stage and give his State of the Union Roots Picnic freestyle. Right. Even though Jay-Z is billionaire and accomplished way more than any probably other rappers ever accomplished, and you know, has had access to way more than most Black people, period, you know, have ever had. Like, he still needs people like Charlemagne, I guess, to step forward and speak about what Jay-Z don't need to do. All right, let me sip my tea again. I'm thinking when Jay-Z did this particular project, Reasonable Doubt, 30 years ago, if someone gave him a snapshot or a video of what life would look like 30 years later, would he be pleased and happy where he's at now? That would be the question that I would ask. Because in the documentary, he talks about how pain is necessary to do certain things, how pain is necessary for things like that. And I think that's a more, what's that, sadist mindset when it comes down to art, which I don't fully agree with. I do believe pain does give it a certain texture, but I believe us, especially Black people, we need to get beyond the notion of that we have to struggle or feel struggle to see success, because other cultures don't necessarily have that. And I think we have to get to the liberating point of view to saying maybe it's just doing what we want to do and doing it at the high level, right? And I think Jay-Z in this particular documentary is really focusing on like who he is and who he was then. So the question I would have is, if you knew then that you would have, first of all, you would marry Beyonce, that when she was, I like them boys, and with them deep waves, so quick to pick up your fiance. Like, I mean, she was making songs like that. Like, he was going to be in the gaming. They were going to have a family together. And the internet was going to pick at your daughter because of her hair, because we have never seen your hair because you always keep it short. But since she's a girl, she's not going to have a short haircut. So we going to know if you really nappy headed. You know what I'm saying? And, and the circle that he is always in, especially dealing with the models and stuff, you don't really see in many, word to Don Imus, nappy headed hoes. Yikes, my bad. Because black hair is beautiful. But you grow your hair out, right? He grows his hair out. Does he think 30 years ago he's going to have a conversation about his hair? And did he see himself losing out a casino deal due to maybe some allegations? Allegations that have now been rescinded by Tony Busby and the group, right? That he's thrown out even a countersuit of, but it still affected his bottom line. In so much that Jay-Z has now countersued due to loss of income. And that 100 million in loss of income, we know we could probably directly tie it to the casino that he probably wanted to happen. Jay-Z wanted that casino in Times Square. What was that? Times Square, Broadway? That's where they were going to build it, because Nas is right over there doing the casino as well. And Jay-Z was probably in the same voices and same rooms where they're like, okay, what do we see? And he loses. Let's just be real. He lost. He lost that battle. And that was a blow probably to his whole thing. So it's like, okay, what do we do next, right? And I believe the celebration of reasonable doubt and those things are concurrently happening. So they're planning these things, but I'm quite sure if he planned to celebrate the opening of the casino and reasonable doubt at the same time, but you lose that, and now you got to focus on just reasonable doubt. And now you got to come back to the hood, for the lack of words, and deal with us. Did you see yourself doing that 30 years ago? Right? Did you see yourself also having to still compete? Like, let's be real, Jay-Z is still competing. You don't flood this amount of marketing dollars into anything if you're not competing. If you don't step on that Roots picnic stage and talk about how old your grandma is, and if your grandma was not here, you would handle things much differently. Did you see yourself as a 6-year-old man having to say these particular things? Let's be real. And I love old. But there's a certain pretentious nature that happens, and there's a lack of critical thinking that happens by Charlemagne the God and other shows that we think that Rock Nation has, that does not permit us to actually be critical. So with that being said, this thing is so good. That being said, the question that we have is, why? Why? I don't know. But Jay-Z, you can live. You can live. Look, you got pop-ups in Bowery Station, Dumbo. He remembered he was going to buy the property in Dumbo, but he missed out on it. How did he feel about that? Dumbo. But you got the huge activations, brand activations going. You got the youngins that are going live. You can tell that there's a concerted effort to reinvigorate Jay-Z in the youth now, showing how cool he was 30 years ago, right? And how cool he still is as a 60-year-old man. We haven't seen this. This is unprecedented. Big Daddy Kane didn't do this. We didn't live to see Tupac that could have probably done this, do this. We didn't live to see Biggie do this. Outkast celebrate 25 years with Stankonia. Didn't quite have the same pop-up effect, but was big to us in the South. You got concerts now popping up in LA, one in Paris. It was just shows in New York. And New York felt so emboldened about, yeah, we have Hov. and they rushed to get those tickets, Yankee Stadium, only for Ho to start popping up in different other places now. Where now there's speculation that Ho dropping an album. Uh, and I believe there was a point where Jay-Z was going to drop an album, but after said interviews and where things are at now, I don't know if he's going to release it in a traditional format. But I do see something visually happening where there's new music, new verses are going to happen, and we're going to be able to digest new content, new content from the Rock Nation, Rap, and Prez. So, I'm excited to see this new Rick Rubin directed 8-part HBO series. Um, and again, we have to give it to Jay-Z. It's a masterclass in omni-channel IP monetization. And other artists need to take notes. Don't cheapen your route. Stay focused. Use your media. Use your community to push things together, because it's not reasonable doubt. It's not just Jay-Z. It's those other individuals that we talk. It's skis. There's so many other people that are getting acknowledged in this particular process that help propel this man into superstar. And he's also showing you what it happens when you own your narrative, your music, and your masters, and the distribution circuits. Hey, where's J. Cole? Do we need to put out an APV J. Cole? I know he's going on this world tour, but after he did this string of media and interviews, seems like J. Cole went back into hiding, right? Where you had a whole song called Old Dog. Carolina's, hold on, you gonna get, take your shut offs when you're running. But you ain't done nothing in Carolina since then. You know what I mean? We haven't seen you hop up in the Trap Dickie video. We haven't seen you go on your live saying, "Oh, this new Trap Dickie hitting," or "This new Ruben Benson's hitting." Falling back into the old ways, right? Is it because you got backlash from people seeing in your interviews? You was going right at Hove. Hove is outside. I don't hear nothing out of the camp from Dreamville. That's all I can say about that. Speaking of Carolina, Trap Dickie, you're up, man. First freshman XXL cover. There's another South Carolina artist on there as well. I'm going to focus on Trap Dickie because Trap Dickie has taken the mantle and pushed it further, because Trap Dickie is signed by West Coast label. We had a West Coast label after seeing the success of Kendrick Lamar. Beautiful to you. After seeing the success of Kendrick Lamar, the most recent signings by this West Coast label has been Southern artists: Isaiah Rashad, Doechii, and now Trap Dickie. What are you showing us over here, TDE? What are you showing us, Top Dog? Trap Dickie is now on the Freshman XXL. And I'm telling you, for a while, I didn't care about the Freshman XXL. I'm going to be real with you. I did not give a damn about that particular format, that platform. I feel like it was outdated. They got it. We got it. Yep, you got it. Because when I see artists like that come from, again, we're talking back to the beginning of this episode where I talk about South Carolina being a small market, not having the wherewithal or the media platform to showcase the type of artists that are there. We talk about the mini stars. We're talking about the Rand Bruces. We're talking about the respect and salutes. We're talking about even Black Zach. All of those artists that were just bubbling up in the state, not getting mainstream appeal, having to just churn it out. So Trap Dickie is like what's probably the fourth generation of these artists that gets heard, hit all these markets in South Carolina, even came to the lounge, if you guys remember. Right before he comes to the lounge, he signed. Just like we had Black Zach at the Easter Bash, right before he got signed to the Babies League, right? So when we see Trap Dickie on the cover, what it means to South Carolina is the tide is turning. Someone is watching, someone is acknowledging the progress that is being made regionally in South Carolina, right? Shout out to Trap Dicky. Shout out to TDE. Uh, I'm only excited about what's coming next. Jacker is one of my favorite songs right now. What's your name, baby? You ever fuck with a street nigga that's in a gang, baby? Like, y'all don't know about it. Um, Now let's take a trip up to Ohio, where we are now. Most recently, uh, we saw a cipher from the I forgot the name of this platform. Please forgive me, guys. Let me see. Can I look it up here? We've seen damn, be able to find this. We've seen various artists that pardon me, I'm sorry for all these we're seeing various artists that are from the Columbus area. Looks like multi-generational to this crazy freestyle. Um, it was artist on artist. I'm gonna say it was like maybe like an 8-minute video, and it's crazy, man. Like, when I'm on Facebook, it's like different when you hear regionally this happening, that you see how the whole other region is acknowledged. And I want to pull up this freestyle video to make sure I get the proper creds. But you got individuals who are praising this, and then you got individuals who are saying, this ain't this. You know what I mean? This. Why y'all trying to rap like these guys? Why you trying to rap like these guys? And I think I have it here. Give me a second. Yeah, here we go. What's the name of this publication here? It's on Shade 45. Shout out to Shade 45. Punchline Academy. Shout out to the Punchline Academy. We saw various artists, PA Flex, one of the hardest in the area, Ho City, and other artists that represent Columbus, Ohio, stepping out. And this is on the infamous Amadeus platform on YouTube. You can donate to the Punchline Academy. We'll put that link in the bio as well. And I'm going to go through some of the comments. Columbus has a real problem. Columbus has a problem, huh? Well, with the first three, they need to form their own Griselda. Props from Queens, New York. Respect from the land. It's good to see there's spitters in Ohio. Ohio killed it. Salute to the 614 from the 216. Cincinnati here, and I'm loving these real bars. Ohio went, and that's how you rep. The bus stand up. And you had some real spitters holding it down. I don't know where they're standing in front of. I know the person that was the lead-off batter was the infamous Amadeus. And the person that ended was this artist that ended. It looked like they were trying to pull him to the side. And shout out to the Grant Gatsby. I think he was out there as well. Grant Gatsby, the great Gatsby, the owner of Scully's. That's one of the performance venues that a lot of budding to major mainstream artists stop through when they're on tour. So, they're talking about real bars. Who's this guy here? He was in a different bag. He was trying to. Anyways, it's not pulling up the name, but I'm gonna tell you one of the standout artists that I saw at this particular freestyle super dope was a long haired curly guy. What's his name? Because he had made mention of like some ice bars, abolish ice bars, and like he showed where some spitters at. Now, naturally, me knowing how these things go, I knew there was a lot of politics involved on who was going to get heard out of this particular battle. His name is Meezy. Shout out to Meezy. I think Meezy had one of the standout performances on this particular, the Punchline Academy's situation out here with Shade 45. These artists using this opportunity to leverage themselves. I saw Bukaki in the mix out there. Saw some of these guys from that group in the mix as well. It seems like not everybody had a chance to rap. Uh, I want to see some women representation, guys. Like we got to get to that particular point because there are some women spitters right here in Columbus. They kind of get into the shout out to Lady Santana. It's one of the ones. Uh, Maya, one of them ones like they got some bars out here that should really be heard, and we should find ways to incorporate to show the full complexity of sound, which goes to the argument that I heard where it was like, Ohio has more of a I don't or what well, I want to make sure I get this right. Okay. See Jack A.U. Burt audio unit. Shout out to the audio unit. Also one of those individuals from Columbus, Ohio's produced, engineered, and put out his own particular music right here from the city. He had a particular post on Facebook that was interesting. It says, funny how a city defends a record label that was funded by the people who runs Fox News. Oh man, but he's he's consistently on his Facebook, critiquing as he should. Uh, he's critiquing, where his stake is and what, Columbus, Ohio. Uh, he had a post 15 hours ago said Columbus greats keep talking about old history instead of growing it. And it's disgusting. We're not in 93 no more. Where the Bops at? He's like, you guys are super rapidly rapping, but I don't hear no hits. I don't hear guys that can make hits. Now, mind you, Columbus is the home of Bow Wow, right? Someone that went from Ohio to the West Coast to the South, right? Made his whole connect back to Ohio. You see Bow Wow with a tiny desk and he's repping the Ohio hat. So there's something that's happening here in Ohio. And uh, it appears that there's rumblings. There are rumblings that are happening about the identity of the area because there are major labels that are looking again, as they were looking in Carolina, looking in this area. They're looking in this area to decide whether we want to invest, grow, and you have artists like shout out to MG Sleepy. I didn't see MG Sleepy in that cipher, but it would have been nice to see him in that cipher. I didn't see Midwest Millie in that cipher. It would have been nice to see him in that cipher. Hell, I would like to see my boy Frank Nitty introduce the cipher. Like these are the creatives that I know in the community that are helping push the conversation forward before these shade profiles get there. Right? So there's a lot to be left on. There's a lot left that's undone that needs to be said and spoken up for the city. And I think we are in that space now where those conversations are being had. But with all that being said, it's still a win for Columbus. It's still a win for the 614. I made sure that we shared that and it's gone across platforms across the world, right? This tea is so good, y'all. We're at the Quay Wild House, Yemen and coffee, and having some meditative tea. 2026 World Cup, speaking of the world, underway. I haven't watched every match. That's the proper term. I've tried to catch some at some bars, try to, lock in on my phone to see certain things. It doesn't quite go viral on Twitter, which is very odd to me. And I think that's because, the American politics on how we look at sports that we're not dominant in, and what type of coverage it gets. But it's all around us, guys. Go to different places, to bars, you'll see it on the TV. And, what's funny is, the conversation online about the racial dynamics that we see right here is you see it. You see, right? We got over how many countries are in the World Cup? It's 570 teams. FIFA is pushing a no racism protocol, protecting 570 teams on social media. Says, however, the visual disparities are stark, right? Highlighting by recent viral controversy where a spectator aimed a racist gesture at his South Korean creator during the South Korea versus Czech Republic match in Mexico, alongside debates that Lamine Yamal waving a Palestinian flag, right? So FIFA's having to come out again with a mainstream perspective and say, listen, we're not here to have racism, guys. Iran's going to participate, and they will play the United States because we're trying to unite the world and bring them together. But when you look at the players, right, look at the players across the board, players that are dominant, you can tell the powers that be. How many coaches look like the players that are playing, right? How many players that are dominant in the sport right now do you see that there's going to be a pathway for them to be in leadership or owning a team representing a country on a major management level? There's a color divide, obviously, and there is a divide in socioeconomic policies that's happening at the same time. There's a lot of Black Americans that are watching the sport now, and they're saying, wait, in these other countries that don't quite have, that we haven't learned that had a strong uh, melanated root, we didn't know. When we look at their soccer team, we see melanated people. Hmm. So is that reinforcing the idea that melanated peoples have said strength, speed, and things like that, which are sometimes quite problematic because that goes into that, our tolerance for pain is high and things like that, and how the medical industry will not quite fully support our, physical health ideals and where we want to go because their belief in these notions of our strength and our capability that pain is quite necessary. Yes. In fact, I find these things quite funny because, your shadow is always going to show itself on the grandest of stages, right? On the grandest of stages, the shadow's always going to show. And in this particular space, people are able to see where the divides are historically, how colonialism has affected almost every country in the world, and how everything from the Dutch to the English to the Spaniards, the British, and their consistent influence on world powers. We're sitting right here in the White House enjoying coffee. And if you look behind me, it charts how coffee has gone across the country. Do we truly believe that that coffee that came from one melanated country, 1600s, by the Dutch comes and gets it? You think they came and got it with fair wages and free will? Or was there some stringing of the arm, where there's some captivity involved, or where there's some issues? And uh, we're looking at the truth in front of our eyes, and we're having to determine what type of people do we want to be, or what people have we told ourselves that we are. And I think that's what the world is showcasing at this particular moment. Whether FIFA wants to put this nice little blanket progressive statement on tap. So I hope the U.S. wins. We've had a decent World Cup this year, a lot better than previous World Cups, and I think we are coming upon this particular moment where, again, we're deciding on who we are, what level of innovation do we want to be in, and in that charting, that time place of where you want to go is going to always detail who you're going to be in the future. So I believe that's why you have these mainstream messages. That's why you have Charlemagne the God trying to get ahead of particular things and speaking from his chest about what he doesn't need to do, but he's still actively doing it. I think it's quite interesting. And I think we're going to continue to chart this as we go. If you've enjoyed this broadcast like I have, and like I've enjoyed this tea, please reach out to us. mtiradio.substack.com. Send me a message on here. Let me know how you like this particular broadcast. Leave a comment. Let us know what direction are we headed. Share it if you can, please. I appreciate that. And give the gifts of subscription. We appreciate our subscribers. We're 15 subscribers away from 100. 15 guys. Make some noise. Yes, sir. 15 subscribers away from 100, even though I know a lot of creators got thousands of subscribers. For the type of content that we're putting out and the way we're putting it out and how self-sufficient that we're doing it, but when we reach that 100, man, we're going to really all out. We're going to do something really cool. I'm going to do we're not going to talk about it on the broadcast, but you'll see it come through and you'll see it happen. So shout out to our subscribers. Shout out to the love that you guys giving us, consistently supporting where we're going. And no matter like how crazy I'm taking things and uh, how insane I've shown up as myself to a point where some people say, you sound like you manic. It's not manic. It's not mania at all, actually. It's just being able to see further. And thank you guys for always supporting that right here. Make sure you guys also follow us at Display Marketing with no vowels on Instagram. And if you want to follow them personally, it's SHEM-E Auto. He is an electronic on Instagram as well. And also follows us Top Shelf Distribution. That's TSC_distribution on Instagram as well. And hopefully we'll see you guys next time. It's been lit. I've had a good time and we're out.